e-commerce. Thanks for joining everyone today. We are talking about 10 years of e-commerce learnings. We're talking about what happened in the past 10 years, what's happening now, and really, what does that all mean for the future of e-commerce? So hopefully you guys will have a lot of learnings from today. Quick housekeeping notes. The same chat you use to enter in your location is also where you can ask us questions. The format of today's presentation really is just going to be a conversation. So I'll introduce and we'll have the speakers kind of present themselves next. But really, we have some general topics to talk about, but please feel free to ask your questions. We will do our best to integrate them into the chat, the live discussion as well. So definitely take advantage of that chat box. If we aren't able to get to your question in the live segment, we will have some time at the end also for questions and answers. And again, if worse comes to worse and we still can't get to your question, we will try to catch everything we missed, regroup with the sellers, and we can even have that as part of the email follow-up as well. Okay, so you guys may see some squares at the top of your screen there for our speakers. So you'll kind of learn a little bit more about us. Chris, Honda, let's start with you. Let's get a little intro of who you are and what happened, who you are to Finale.
Yeah, so I'm Chris. I'm one of the co-founders here at Finale. Pauline, did you want me to get a little bit more into where Finale came from right now, or is that later?
Let's get to that in a little bit. So,
okay.
Co-founder with Finale. Excellent. Todd, why don't you take yourself off mute? Perfect.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for including me in this webinar. Really excited to be here. So yeah, my name is Todd. I am currently working with a brand called Dermaclara, a personal care brand, beauty brand out of San Diego. 10 years ago, when Finale was just kicking off, I was working for a 3PL in San Diego that was sort of desperately trying to catch up with the boom of e-commerce just really taking off, trying to make that transition from the old traditional warehousing and fulfillment into the e-commerce brand. So I met a couple of guys in San Diego that had a brand incubator called IDK, and their idea was, they wanted to launch a few e-commerce brands and sort of incubate them and see which ones took off. And they asked me to come and open a small warehouse. And the idea was to fill in the gap where startup brands were finding it very costly in 2015, 2016 to engage with the 3PL. And, you were paying a lot of minimums and a lot of service fees. And if you didn't have the revenue, which a lot of startups don't, it really could be disheartening. So we decided to, see if we could set up just a little basic warehouse just for that early stage of getting brands up to that point where 3PL fulfillment made sense. So we did. And we started off with, the industry tools at the time. Shopify and ShipStation were inexpensive, accessible, affordable, easy to use. And we were very happy with those tools, but we needed an inventory management system. And I literally started with, what does ShipStation recommend in, 2016, and got a list and started going down the list, narrowed it down to 2 or 3. And Finale was sort of my outlier. I'd never seen anything like it. It was, again, affordable, pay as you go, had a lot of really good tools, was ready to plug and play with Shopify and ShipStation. So I recommended it. Our founder called Finale, on my recommendation, talked to Chin, one of the founders, and called me back 20 minutes later and said, Finale's a go. This is a good system. So we got in early. We used it. We loved it. We grew, the brands we were incubating at the time was Manscaped and Dermaclara. Manscaped went on to become a very, very large multinational brand. We stayed with Finale for a long time. It took us a long, long way, right up until we had to, move to enterprise software. And then a group of us in 2020 broke off from Manscaped and rebooted Dermaclara, another brand. We tried some other softwares with Dermaclara and we just weren't getting what we wanted. So we revisited Finale in 2021, been with them ever since. Dermaclara is doing very well. Finale has been phenomenal, in that gap between sort of 2019 and 2021, they had added a ton of innovation to their offerings for accounting and for just some of the FBA integration. So super happy, big fans. We get great service and just really happy to be here on the call to share my experience with some potential Finale brands.
Cheers, Todd. Thanks. It's amazing to hear about like Manscaped growth, right? From like where you started to where you ended up, and like love always hearing that Finale can help businesses scale in that exact scenario. Very cool. Lewis Fruckman, you guys may know him from Barcode Arena. Lewis, share a little bit about yourself and your Finale story.
Hey, everybody. You'll have to excuse me if I mess up because I'm a little nervous. Anyway, I've been in the barcode industry I've been around the barcode industry since I was in pull-up diapers. And we've been in business for almost 30 years now. And I met Finale, as a matter of fact, through me selling barcode scanners on Amazon. That was one of my claim to fames, was I was probably the first Amazon seller to sell barcode scanners on Amazon. I launched the seller account in late 2011, and Will Harvey, one of the co-founders of Finale, bought a mobile barcode scanner from our Amazon store in early 2012. And he reached out to return the item. And I reached out to Will and I said, hey, what's going on? Let's see what isn't working so that we can get you on the right track. And, this was very early in the Amazon days, so I've seen pretty much everything evolve. Anyway, with Will, he was developing this mobile app for his inventory software that was called Finale Fireworks. And he needed a little bit of extra resources to finish getting the app for the mobile devices working. And back then it was on Windows Mobile. He purchased a Windows CE device, which is a similar platform, but just a different user interface. So we got him a different device and we essentially helped build the whole mobile scanning platform collectively by providing the hardware and architecture and resources to finish that mobile app. I put him in touch with some buddies I had who developed apps on Windows Mobile. And what we did was market disruption, which I'm sure a lot of you guys do in your respective spaces. And that was, hey, right now, every inventory software, it's a $20,000 entry cost just to get started. And then you pay 20 grand just to get rolling. And then they tell you, oh, go buy the hardware. And the scanners, you'd go find, a dealership and it was $2,000 a device. And you're chasing down a sales rep and it's kind of a nightmare. And everybody ends up mad because you've already spent 20 grand. And then it's like, they never told me it was going to be $5,000 to get 2 scanners. So we used Barcode Arena, my Magento online store, to make this Finale specific catalog where it's very easy to purchase. E-commerce, you don't have to chase down the sales rep. The prices per device is like $500 roughly. And it just blew the socks off of every other conventional inventory software offering. And it changed the whole game and it disrupted the market. And that was one of the reasons Finale is such a no-brainer, because they don't BS you. They'll tell you whether or not your processes and business will fit within their program. And there's no ridiculous commitment to get started. So anybody in their own reasonable mind is going to start there when 4 out of the 5 other places you've looked at are like, yeah, 10 grand to get started and you feel like you're getting hollow shell answers like yes, 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 just to get you to sign up. Where this is like the counterculture of that. So
Well said, Lewis. Well
Yeah.
said. Appreciate it. Definitely our goal is to make things easier for folks and add value to them. Absolutely. Very cool. Good story. All right, Chris, here we are. CTO, co-founder, Chris Hondel, 10 years. How did you come into this? Tell us about what this 10-year anniversary means for you for Finale.
That's a pretty tall order there, Pauline. It's been a long time, and actually, as Luis points out, you know, that actually goes back even before. So, my co-founder and I have Will have known each other for probably 30 years at this point. Our second co-founder, Chin, we've known for about 20 years at this point, and we don't come from business software. And I think the story Luis tells is absolutely representative of how we've approached this entire process here at Finale, which is, you know, learning from others, you know, not coming in thinking we're the experts, we know everything, but coming in and saying, well, you know, we've been talking to these customers, here's what they say they need. All right, let's figure out how to do it. And that's sort of from the very beginning, because as some of you may know, but not everyone, we started out with fireworks software. In fact, we started out doing design software for fireworks. You know, this is actually prior to Chin joint, the predecessor project that Will and I had been doing. And we didn't know anything about fireworks, so we learned from the customers like what they need. We were software people who thought fireworks were cool. Moved from that. That was never going to be a very big business. And so looking for things bigger, talking to them, they realized that they have a big inventory problem and they had a differentiated need. And this is a classic thing in, you know, any type of business, going after a niche market where they have differentiated needs and finding a way to solve their problem. So we narrowed way down. We found the specific things that fireworks companies needed and built inventory software for them, knowing that in time we'd find a new market and a bigger market, which is what we then did in 2014, launching Finale into the world of e-commerce and having settled in on e-commerce. And it, you know, that part of the story really kind of shows, you know, the learning and the value we place on working with our customers to create something that's wonderful and being transparent. And then since then, the story is all about improvements, right? So every, you know, I talk to my engineering team, I say, you know, hey, it's not about trying to hit the best out of the park today. Like we know our customers, and every day we just make this product a little bit better. And if every single day you get better, you know, after a decade, you've got a pretty amazing platform of software, a great foundation, and a very sustainable business, which is, you know, where we find ourselves today. And I think going forward, where we're going to be long into the future.
Perfect. Very good. Great transition. So, all right, we're here to learn. We're here to collaborate with everyone here on the call and together the speakers to make things better for the future. So I guess last intro, hi everyone, VP of Marketing at Finale. I've worked with them for a couple years prior to actually being here, and being on the team is even better. Not only is the software, you know, something that is really tried and true, trusted in the industry, but the team is really top notch. And so I love being with this team. All right, that being said, Lewis, you had got us started by talking about Amazon, being the first Amazon seller to sell barcodes. So way to be a category leader, category disruptor. That's awesome. Perhaps we can kind of start there and talking about sales channels. So let's see, in the past, right, it was just a lot of web stores, right? Obviously, marketplaces came into play. Amazon is now the giant gorilla in the room. But there's always been eBay, right? Walmart, Etsy, Faire. There's so many others. There's Rebelow for electronics. There's some more niche markets for home goods, Wayfair, Overstock, what have you. And so how do you guys view that migration from was Shopify only, then multi-channel conversation came with marketplaces, and kind of even like what's going on now? There's a little bit of social shopping happening, obviously, right? We just like got our TikTok integration launched, but how do you think sellers are adapting now to those changes? More multi-channel, more complex multi-channel. I mean, this webinar is happening on the heels of major Amazon changes. And then again, we can shift that conversation to what do you think that happens for the future? So big first question, multi-channel management, shifting from web store only to marketplaces. What are your guys' thoughts?
this might be pretty direct, but what major Amazon changes just occurred that you alluded to?
Oh my gosh, there's ship in placement packages, right? There's premium versus discounted fulfillment based on where you send your inventory. There's the need to get the right inventory in, obviously at the right time. If you send in too much, there are fees. If you don't send in enough, then you're gonna like lose the buy box and get penalized. So
Right.
like,
Oh,
so
that's funny because when I first started doing Amazon, we did only FBA for the first half a decade. And then I think about 7 or 8 years into it, we actually stopped doing FBA because of the fact that you had to juggle so many different things and that you'd have dead time of 2 to 3 weeks and you'd basically have too much opportunity loss. So I completely unplugged from doing FBA because of that opportunity loss and the lack of agility. And all those things that you're talking about that came down the pipe, I was fortunate to be able to ignore because I stopped doing FBA almost 100%.
There's kind of like two camps, right? The like FBA dependent or the brand owner like strategy through and through. And then there's kind of the middle mixed channel with multi-channel. There is certainly a strong cohort of brand shops D2C only. So absolutely understand that.
Yeah, as far as the marketing goes though, because that's one of my specialties is all the e-commerce and online marketing is Amazon. For those of you that are selling on Amazon, that will always be your path of least resistance, both financially and in terms of sales revenue, to get the most visibility to the product and the cheapest way to get the most traffic because it's the biggest party on the internet. So, like I've sold on plenty of places. I've done jet.com, which later became Walmart and Newegg, and we do a lot on eBay. eBay's great. It's kind of a different culture of shopper between Amazon and eBay, but you also don't want to be super dependent, as everybody knows, on Amazon alone. So like with Barcode Arena, it's Magento, and we do a lot of Google advertising, and that's always a good thing. It's with that said, where it's really shifting to, and I'm glad you guys did the TikTok thing and hopefully TikTok holds up, but social media, YouTube shorts, YouTube channels, I've got YouTube channels of how-to stuff, but I'm even considering getting in touch with some of these, what are they, like talent management companies that basically connect your brand to these Instagram influencers and all that stuff, which is probably what I would do to keep myself out of like an Instagram or TikTok marketing account, because I've heard some horror stories lately where TikTok's way that they grab information is now prompting like lawsuits from attorneys in California. I know I have a close friend who already got hit with one of those that's in the eyewear industry. So
tricky, really tricky. But Todd, question. So, I mean, I saw you shaking your head. Beauty industry is one that's doing really well on TikTok. So kind of what are your thoughts here between channels that are working, how sellers have to adjust to different channels? And then again, what comes for the future?
Yeah, so just a couple quick takes. I was taught, again, 10 years ago about Amazon. This was in the early days of IDK and breaking brands. And what I was told operationally is Amazon's going to take your 30%. You're going to give them 30%, right? And that's the cost of doing business. You need it. You got to have it. So, and we chose the FBA route just for, again, give it all to them and just forget about it. And we didn't look to that for profitability, just for exposure. But as you pointed out, the changes are coming hard and fast. And what they've done is they've got us hooked, a brand like Dermaclara, where Amazon's providing the results, so we've got to go, but they are just eating away at profitability to the point where we now have to look at that and go, do we need to go to seller fulfilled? But it's an interesting conversation because my short answer is this: as a brand today, a beauty brand in that space, we are really trying to keep it simple by saying, okay, if we're gonna bring TikTok in, let's run it through Shopify if possible, keep everything running through that funnel of Shopify. So that's how we're adding these sort of one-offs and try, we want to try this, we want to try that. We're not seeking to set up, accounts and become dependent. We're really trying to rely on Shopify and stay with them. And we've had some success and some real hard times. TikTok, I think we could talk for a long time about the last 3 months of, what everyone's been through. So I'll just leave it as we found a way to make TikTok work with Shopify. We've stayed away from direct integrations because we're just unsure. And where we are adding new channels has been through, again, retail outlets. And yes, we want to take advantage of all the social media, but we're kind of sticking to our core. We're not getting too diverse. And that's a little to do with, Dermaclara's approach. We're trying to keep it simple, not have a lot of management. We use influencer agencies that, like Lewis mentioned, and stuff like that. It's really about who can we partner with, who will, again, bring us business, but we want to stick to our operational core and not be too diverse, because we felt the pain of that, right? Of just trying to add channels and plugging up our workflow. So hopefully that's helpful. That's a $10 million brand saying, hey, we're having success, but let's not go crazy here and try to be all things to all people. So we're riding that balance, and it really is a nice way to watch all these opportunities, but not jump at every single one, right? There are different ways to try it. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think that many sellers will find that there's kind of diminishing returns, and there's a lot of management that comes with every single marketplace that you add. And so like add 1 or 2, maybe 3, see how that goes. But before you go like long tail, it really is important to work through that operational handling. And again, we're not even just talking like true logistics, but like, how does your warehouse team talk to the folks in the office? How do the folks in the office and the listings and the advertising team know what's available? What can we sell? What's reflected on the website?
Right.
Pricing strategies across. Chris, thoughts on multi-channel here?
I mean, my thought on multi-channel is this has been, our story from the beginning has been helping folks, be multi-channel. First in conjunction with ShipStation, now, a lot, with ShipStation and with other platforms, and other shipping approaches. I think the big story for me coming away from this is, we need to keep learning, right? We need to keep that constant innovation as approaches change, as people take different approaches. So, please continue to talk to us about what you need in terms of getting to different channels and the support and the problems you're hitting. Because we've got a capacity to help.
Yeah.
I think a question.
Go for it.
A question is for Todd, because influencer agencies have been around for a while, so it's not really new, but to a lot of us, it's probably still a novel thing. How well does that actually serve you guys?
It's a mixed bag, and again, I'm more operational than marketing, so I'm not the best person even in our brand to answer, but I will say this from our conversations. You can spend a lot of money and not get a lot of returns, or you can get really lucky. Our brand has definitely been boosted by influencers, and boy, when they hit, they can be really impactful. But again, any new trend, right? It's a new trend, and I don't think it's evened out yet. I think there's still too many influencers and agencies out, right? That thing's got to balance out to a normalcy. So finding one for us has been trial and error, and we have definitely moved from tried different things, including having our own internal department that that's what Manscaped used, a whole department just to manage influencers, because at the time there wasn't more. But yeah, I would say for a brand who's thinking of moving into that space, proceed with caution. Find more tried and true, sure demographics, but I would say it also falls in, the same market budget that you budget to your other marketing, probably has a similar return. It's just maybe a lot more work. That's all than some of the other stuff.
Fashion Nova was one of the originators of that. They actually created that whole industry, and now there's these agencies, but
Right.
it's like a shot in the dark because you really have to have that perfect blend of influencer reach with their demographic that matches up super like your B2C and at home use product that really every household can buy. Where if you're doing like business to business products, you know,
Different.
commercially,
Yeah.
it's yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
personal care lends itself, obviously. So I've been with a couple brands that really lent itself, and it was right place at right time. But yeah, my only wisdom would be, again, be cautious about it. And it's addictive because, man, when one influencer hits right place, right, boy, you can see a boost and you will go running back to try to get more of that. But it's just over time it evens out. And I think it ends up being like a lot of other marketing approaches, which is, you just keep spending money, and sometimes you do well and sometimes you don't. Nobody has figured it out, I
It's
don't
like
think.
playing the slots.
Yeah, right. It is. No, I liken it to that. Boy, it feels good when it hits though, doesn't it?
That's right. What I've heard, I think that TikTok is changing the game a little bit, right? So, in terms, I can't speak about the agency or the management side, but what I've heard about influencers themselves is, first of all, when going on TikTok with influencers, you need to just kind of give up the reins, right? Because they have their audience, they have the people who follow them. You don't necessarily know what's going to go viral or not, but you just have to kind of put the trust in the people who are going to represent your brand. Because they might have like a funnier way to approach this phrase that you never thought of in marketing, this just like funny video short that they create. The most random things can go viral, and just putting your trust out that like this person's going to do well by you because they get the commission is really kind of what the TikTok influencer world is about. And again, in terms of like promotion, right? Like that algorithm is serving, and they want to serve the most successful ads because TikTok wants the commission, the influencer wants that sale, and TikTok just wants to be more relevant. So just based on how TikTok works, the influencers is really like a, trust the world thing. In terms of the other platforms, though, I think it is a little bit more regimented, formatted, what have you, where you can kind of give talking points and scripts out on Meta, out on LinkedIn, etc. TikTok's an interesting space, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, and anytime you've got user generated content out there, there is an upside. I mean, I've heard say that that's an important part, is you basically, because operationally, I'm always asking our marketing team, why do we give away so much product? And we'll send anybody who's, and so operationally and bottom line, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But they say, hey, what we pay to create content, and now we've got people creating it and flooding the market. So that's I think a hidden benefit to again using influencers selectively, but I think it's also brand driven. I think for some brands it's just going to work less. But yeah, TikTok it's here.
So the whole TikTok thing is essentially like an integrated Amazon affiliates program type of thing.
Yep.
Correct. And you talk about management, like they manage the full thing in terms of like
Yeah.
payments out, tracking, kind of what's working, what's not.
They must have reached me like 25 times the months leading up to this. They I'm sure they blasted all of you guys too.
It's a big deal. Everyone's kind of talking about it. And again, kind of what happens next, right? Which goes back to like store owners and, managing their brands on their own. It's just really, really important. So, we had planned to talk about advertising. So perhaps this is a good transition for that. Let's see, advertising. So I think kind of, back in the day, it was all Google CPC. Everyone was going just to search to find products. I would say even slightly before the pandemic hit, things were transitioning more and more to Amazon. Now consumers are absolutely starting on Amazon for like 60 to 70% of their search, purchase intent is all starting on Amazon, which is why that's such a powerful place to have your products. But again, we're talking about social selling, right? We're talking about Facebook, Meta. Their ad strategy is now pulling back on more and more targeting. They've pulled back over the years. They just pulled back even more. And Meta with, AI, personalization, data, etc., they're hoping that you'll give like parameters to your advertising placement, but then they'll really be the ones to place your ads. And so again, what is your guys' ad strategy? What do you think about the various platforms there are today? And obviously the question of this webinar is, what do you think happens in the future with advertising?
If I'm the first one to answer, I want to answer with a question, because it sounds like Todd is probably the foremost expert here, and Chris too. Can you give us a quick pros and cons of doing this TikTok store thing? And do you require an integration that Finale delivers in order to do it? Or do they just give you the reins like any selling platform to just build out a store? And if you can kind of explain the onboarding and pros and cons, because that could be the future.
Yeah, I can give you a quick, and remember, I'm more operations than marketing, so I'm gonna see this through an operational lens. But we jumped right on the TikTok offer when they blasted everybody saying they were gonna, they were offering some sort of crazy half off or something, that they were, just to get people to the store. So anyway, we just plugged in and made it work. But it was very difficult because the integrations weren't ready at places like, Finale and some of the other softwares we were using. But anyway, we plugged into their store. We were getting redacted address information. We had a lot of pain points when we launched it, but because we just jumped right in and said, how can we take advantage of this? Two things happened. One, we didn't really get a huge boost from TikTok over, our normal funnel in the ways that we're marketing. So we were not blown away, and there was a lot of pain points. Now, fast forward 90 days, we finally got it working. There is a app called Aftership that works with Shopify that helped us basically take care of the pain points, and we've got it running. So again, in our case, we held out doing a direct store integration from the store to our 3PLs and to our to Finale as well. We just said we held to it and said, no, we're going to make this work with Shopify for our own reasons, again, of just keeping things simple, running them through the Shopify channel. And so we did, and we got there. But I'm not going to be the person that's going to come on today and say it's the future. We've seen huge response. I know brands have. I think if you're the right brand for TikTok, you better get in, you better figure out how to do it and make it work with your workflow.
So they syndicate your storefront essentially to their store, and then influencers have the ability to just promote it and try to link people to the products that are in your TikTok store. I'm just trying to, it's not like
different things. So there's TikTok Shops where you can basically set up your products within TikTok Shops. It's a little bit more of a static experience. But then there's the TikToks that we're all familiar with in terms of like the going viral piece, where
Right.
you hook up with the influencers all within the TikTok platform. You have your seller center, you have kind of influencers out there,
Right.
connect with them, send products, etc.
I see. It's just like Amazon Vine.
There you go.
Your products out there for free. You pay Amazon. It's basically like what the Amazon doesn't want you to do, but with their own guardrails. Amazon, you can't reach out to customers and ask them for reviews and stuff. And you know how a lot of these sketchy sellers will just like reach out to customers and ask them, hey, I'll give you a gift card if you leave a review. It's basically like Amazon, same thing, it sounds like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, Todd.
So can I just qualify? Yeah, I want to qualify one thing for Lewis and for the participants. Dermaclara was successfully marketing on TikTok long before the TikTok shop came, right? So for us, the behavior wasn't changed. What you're talking about, Pauline, marketing using TikTok, influencers who are posting on TikTok and driving sales via TikTok. We were doing that long before the shop opened. To me, what happened in the last 90 days was TikTok offered a lot of incentives and put a lot of marketing behind, let's try to drive sales to the shop. But again, internally, we're talking about what is really the response. Do people trust TikTok? We're not all in. We are not all in with TikTok. On this, the video marketing side and the influence side, we're all in, but we're not all in with TikTok Shop. So that today, we're just saying, hey, it's just another thing like Amazon. You better be there. You better be set up. You don't want to
Like,
lose those sales, but
like
we're not.
Jet or Walmart. So I guess the answer to the future of marketing, anybody who's listening still, when
Yeah.
Walmart and Jet came out, if you jumped on and started selling on there, can anybody chat in if they actually had a Walmart account that took off and went off like wildfire? Because it's one of those things, like, you advertise on Google and you do pay-per-click. You advertise on Microsoft and you do pay-per-click, but you know that you're never going to get the level of output paying Microsoft to do ads, but you're just doing it to have that outreach for that crevice of the internet for those who do it. So, you're right. TikTok could be viral, the TikTok shop, let's say, because influencer partnerships is not only relevant for TikTok, but every other Instagram, YouTube, whatever platform. But the TikTok shop itself may end up just being like a, Newegg type, kind of like Castaway second tier marketplace.
And I think that's a good point. I think that you can have a different product placement and advertising channel for different reasons, right? So your brand shop is different than your Amazon potentially, right? Not full overlaps, which is different from potentially a secondary Shopify or even a smaller marketplace. Similarly, I think that the way that you market your products can be different. So for instance, the products that work best on TikTok are lower tier value, like $30 or less. It needs to be an instant decision for that customer to just be shown a less than 30-second clip for what makes it so great. So that could be a loss leader, right? But like, just introduce your brand via TikTok. Then you get to send them a package with your own inserts in it. That's how you create loyalty. You can remarket them through Facebook, get them on Google, and how you advertise on then Google, Amazon, however, is very different, right? So I think it's just knowing, like, how can you leverage each channel in the right way to get the right customers in and then to keep your customers as well. Thoughts, you guys, thoughts about that piece? Kind of, customers are coming in, how do you engage them? Again, anyone out listening, any questions for us, please feel free to chat it in or use the Q&A either way. But let's kind of talk about that loyalty piece. What's happening in the world of loyalty, especially for Amazon? And I know this is kind of a different conversation with you guys on it, but Amazon sellers are pushing out orders, but they don't necessarily own that relationship with the customer. So for brand owners, how does that look to attract and retain your customers?
I could probably help here, and I'll stop talking soon because I don't want to be the biggest talk. But with Amazon, I've been doing it for a long time, and we're still doing it, and we have an extremely healthy account. If anybody's been selling on Amazon since late 2011, please let me know, because I've yet to meet anybody who's been continuously selling there as long as I have. We do what Jeff Bezos has broadcasted out to the public that he wants done. Treat the customer first. We don't even request, feedback. Like, I've been selling for 11 years. I think we have 375 seller feedback. And, if you compare it to the amount of products we've sold, it's like a ridiculously low number. I try not to subject customers to things that I wouldn't want to be subjected to myself. So that's like weird follow-ups and blast emails and things that you're just like, okay, I'm being treated like a piece of meat. So we try to just deliver what you ordered with the resources that you need in the box to get going with as little fuss as humanly possible. And we know you want to be left alone, and we leave you alone. And when you reach out and you ask for something, we jump like immediately. If it's 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday, I'm responding to a message, getting out of bed to go jump to it, to keep everything up to snuff, because in the end, we're treated like a warehouse picker at an Amazon warehouse. You know, they have to pick a certain amount of products every hour to be productive. And the metrics that Amazon uses to keep to keep an eye on sellers' performance, it's really the same thing. If your performance rates dip below their minimum requirements, they want to, you know, look at you and it's like meeting with the warehouse manager. Why aren't you meeting your numbers? I feel like it's an episode, that movie Office Space, you know, where Lumbergh comes around the corner to the cubicle and he's, you know, I'm going to need you to come in on Saturday.
That's right. Very much makes sense. Yeah, because Amazon really is all about that customer satisfaction, right? So you have to keep up with all of the demands to keep your seller rating in good standing, so you don't kind of get dinged. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's funny, like you have to kind of make your product be as invasively available on the open internet, like in an unsolicited form, where when somebody looks you up, they're going to find you. But then once you convert, you want to be as minimally invasive as possible. Now, I'm not recommending everybody does that. That's just what I've done that's worked extremely well for us.
I think that's great input, Lewis. I just wanted to echo on that. You know, when you look at Amazon over the years, you know, we're talking about 10 years, right? If we look at Amazon over 10 years, here's been my rule. They're always frustrating me with the next thing they add, which is usually something that's going to help with their revenue stream. But I always end up going, man, I see why they're doing it. And I apply the things that they're doing to my own operational workflows, because they are looking at that, right? They are just analyzing everything for efficiency. So I think we can learn something from Amazon. Again, as an operations manager, not a marketing manager, I'm going to say this about how we successfully keep things fresh. It's diversifying, right? It's trying every different way. And like you said, Lewis, keeping yourself in front of people without hopefully crossing that line. You know, my wife would say that Dermaclara over markets to her. You know, she's on their radar, she's getting retargeted, but she gives me good feedback about that too. You know, what's too much and what's right. I think why we've been successful is we've got these, digital marketing sort of cowboy guys, right? That they really just approach it from, we got to keep up, we got to try stuff. And then you've got to look at the data and get out if it's not working, so that, your ideas are fresh, but they're also smart, right? You can't stay too long. And I think that, what we talked about with TikTok is a great example. It was very tempting to go all in. They really made it sound like this is the time and this is the thing. And definitely our sales, our head of sales was like, we got to get in on this. They're basically giving away free marketing. But then we got in and then we talked about it. So I think that's been our model. And the other thing I want to just bring up real quick is retail is evolving at the same time. So when you talk about multi-channel, you've got to talk about what's the future of retail. And Dermaclara is taking a very different approach. We're not trying to get that big box per se, as much as we're trying to get the right partners, because what we want, right? We want Dermaclara to be in the consciousness. We want people to discover it in as many different ways as possible. And we feel like we're doing a good job on social media, but there's a gap, right? There's still eyes that we're not getting in front of. So that's been part of our thing too, is to sprinkle in creative retail outlets while remaining a core D2C brand.
Yeah, I was interesting, because I think that getting in front of the users is really important. And we talk about how it's bricks and clicks, but bricks doesn't have to be a tried and true your own store. It can be, that's great. But even going, pop-up stores, our sellers are doing, they're using like a POS and going to, a city a week, or just popping up throughout the year in key markets. They're also doing things like festivals, right? Like, again, farmers markets, festivals, what have you, just to kind of get that brand recognition out there and get in the face of their users and customers, trying out new products, talking to the customers, figuring out kind of, live and in person, what's working, what's not, and then obviously making some sales too. So I think that kind of, Todd, you also mentioned diversification. That's something I think that will always remain true in e-commerce, diversification of channels, diversification of your ad channels as well, because you can't ever be reliant on one thing, because God forbid what happens to that one thing, and then, just badness bears. So,
We
um,
we talked about remarketing this morning because Todd, you said your wife said she was getting over advertised.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I typically didn't do remarketing because what I didn't want was you see our ad, maybe like beachfront property when you search on Google, and then for the next week you're getting followed. And the
Yeah.
issue is like it can be annoying. Some people like it, but the majority of people don't. It's creepy. So you basically pay for the first click, then the user gets followed, and when they find that annoying, they will never click the remarketing ad. They just ignore it. And then what ends up happening is a week and a half later, when they're ready to buy and they do that Google search all over again, like traditional Google query, you're probably not going to get shown on the beachfront because your ads for the last 7 days have been ignored. So there's a fine line, and we were talking about maybe trying 1 month on and 1 month off with and without remarketing because of that exact thing. And what I did conclude is that if you're going to do remarketing, the production quality of the graphics that you serve better be really high. Because if you let Google use these stock photos or just let them randomly generate these images that are kind of low quality, it just adds to the perception of cheapness of your brand. So you want it to be really high production, colorful, eye-catching if you are going to serve those remarketing.
yeah. And then I think to your point, also set parameters around your remarketing for how often they're shown, over what period, set up rules and events and triggers so that Google knows. I'm just gonna say Google, let's face it, we're only talking about Google here. Google knows when to send, when to stop sending. But you guys, we're all kind of here on the operational side, but haven't really touched that topic yet. So let's kind of go full hog there. So again, operations, back in the day, we're talking like single channel, we're talking retail only. Then we obviously are going online, fulfillment, there's customer service. What's happening in warehouses now, in stores now, and what should our sellers look out for the future? Chris, you've been quiet so far. Do you want to start us off here?
No, I'm gonna hand it over to Lewis, actually. I'm gonna defer to Lewis.
Tee
Okay.
you up, Lewis.
Ask me that question one more time.
We know what you're gonna talk about. It's the future. It's the RFID. It's time to talk about RFID.
Oh, great. Okay, so Walmart, if you are a vendor to Walmart, they set up this mandate where your products, specifically in the apparel and outdoor goods and toys, basically everything except grocery, needs to be tagged no longer with just a traditional UPC barcode, but an RFID. It's called an EPC. EPC is essentially what's been coined as UPC 2.0. So it is, I have tags here actually. So here's an example of an EPC. I don't know if you can see that. But you've got the human readable on the top with your traditional style barcode. And then in the sticker is this little inlay. So this inlay is essentially a flimsy memory chip / radio frequency antenna. And the way it works is in this inlay, you store memory, which the memory you store on the tag in order to comply with Walmart's mandates. It's not just Walmart, Nordstrom, Dick's Sporting Goods, Belk, pretty much every large retailer is adopting this because Walmart, like anything they do, people follow. But it makes data collection a lot faster. I actually have a bunch of hardware here, but I won't demo it because I don't want this to go too wild. But the UPC is actually stored in the memory of this inlay. The catch is it only holds 96 bits of data, which is like 20 something, 30 something characters. And the memory is parsed out into separate memory banks. So the UPC is aggregated out across like 2 different memory banks. You've got your company prefix and then the unique identifier and then the check digit. So when you scan these tags, you can pull the trigger and get 1,000 tags instantly instead of having to go boop, boop, boop to every single barcode. The software, though, has to basically take the tag ID, which is a hexadecimal string, decrypt the hexadecimal string into the compartmentalized memory banks, and then you do with it the data from there. But if you're sending a pallet of goods to Walmart and you've got RFID tags on every product, you can just go to the pallet, pull the trigger, and you'll get all the products on the pallet
Based off of
in a minute, rather than having to spend an hour scanning everything individually. And I predict that at some point Amazon is going to start adopting this same mandate, where when you put your ASIN product sticker on your boxes of each product before you send them in, they may or may not do this, but I'm speculating at some point they're going to say, okay, your ASIN stickers now have to be RFID stickers, and then all what's going to break loose. So I've already, I have a piece of software I wrote for RFID to make using RFID out of the box a lot cheaper and more easily accessible to the masses. And we've been talking to Finale about what that looks like if that ever comes down the pipe. I can't, say or guarantee anything, but we're aware of it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. I think RFID has been on my radar for a long time. I've seen it in more asset management applications, right? So tools and equipment that are going in and out of facilities. That's an area operationally I've been really interested in to fit, when is that going to be a thing? Also on the operations side, and another area of possible investment for us has really been in the use of vision and cameras. There's some really interesting things going on with using cameras in warehouses to track things, to track efficiency, to track, to basically alleviate the need to scan as many items, and track where things are going. It's happening in larger scale operations. Specifically when I've been at some Amazon events where they talk about how they manage their fulfillment centers, which are, I think, somewhat larger than our customers' fulfillment centers typically. But I think there's a possibility of bringing some of that technology down into the kind of customers that we serve. I think that's really exciting. That's one of the things that Finale has been about. I mean, we're not doing things that haven't been done in many cases in business software before. We're doing it in a way that is approachable and appropriate for this market and the kind of customers. Getting back to Todd described when they first found us when they were working with Manscaped and IDK, a product you really can get going with. And so bring some of that enterprise tech to this particular market and these e-commerce sellers. I think that's my big thing with operation. I'm actually kind of excited to get back to that. We've spent a lot of time in some other areas the last couple of years. Todd alluded to financials, but getting back to some of that warehouse efficiency and both the Vision AI area and the RFID tech is, I think, pretty interesting stuff for us in the in the coming year or two.
Very cool. Todd, thoughts on operations? Like you said, you're the operations guy. So any learnings for kind of what you're doing now versus what you did in the past and what you guys are ramping up for in the future?
Yeah, I think the biggest, just to give you a summary of what I've seen, and where I think it's going is we're approaching, running a brand very differently than we did even 5 years ago in terms of Dermaclara has a very small staff of experts. We run very lean. And so what we are really focused on, and this, the word I want to throw out is just data. Data has become so important. So when I'm looking at why do we love Finale, why do I like certain partners that I have, a lot of that is measured against how quickly and easily I have access to important key data, right? As an operations manager, I just need that stuff. And sometimes I'm surprised how difficult it still is to get data pulled together. And I know there's platforms and people out there doing it, but so that's what I think the future is for brands in my opinion, is, can you run a brand lean with good partners and really good technology so that you're not spending money on the least effective thing, which unfortunately is payroll, right? And so when I look at how we ran, Manscaped years ago, we spent a lot of money to build that brand, and it was successful, and that's great. But I think we all know that's few and far between. With Dermaclara, I think we've been a smart company. So when I look at 2023 and forward, that's what I would say is, do you have good data available to you to make the decisions you need to make? And do you have people still gathering data and compiling data to help you? Because I used to spend a lot of my time compiling and getting the data I needed so I could make my decisions. But the great news is the technology is really coming along to have just one person like myself with a brand managing all of the supply chain and all of the 3PL distribution fairly easily. And that is in a big part due to the improvements with platforms like Finale. And Chris, you mentioned, having the financial piece taken care of, which again used to be a drain on I used to work closely with accounting a lot just to make sure the numbers were right. Now it's pretty much just happening in the background, which is beautiful. So that's where I think it's going. We talked about diversification of sales channels, and I think I think you got to be smarter these days if you want to incubate a brand and get a brand up and running. And when I'm talking to other brands, they're seeing those same challenges, which is, how can I get my tech stack to be the right for our brand, for our size, have room for growth, but not break the bank, things like that. So that's what I see as the frontier for operations managers.
I agree. Data is going to be huge for the future. It's already important, right? And to your point of like actionable data, knowing what's there, we get so many like praises for not only just having the reorder data, but even the notification, like knowing the data is there, knowing to do something with it, issue that purchase order out. All those little pieces go a long way. So,
oh yeah, and if I could just really plug, landed cost calculations and things that Finale have made, again, supply chain management. So it really does a lot for what feels like a small platform, and that's not critical. I'm just saying, cost wise, yeah, I love the ability to run my supply chain stuff again as a person who is not a full-time supply chain professional, which, again, with startups and businesses of our size, you don't have experts, right? You have people who have to figure out how to do a lot of things. And that's where I think Finale has been a boon, especially when we came back in 2021 and saw the improvements to the accounting integration, QuickBooks integration, and also where they're going with Amazon. It has been fantastic. Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right, guys. So we've always made it to the end. Thank you for everyone for sticking around. I hope it's been an enlightening time for you. Learned a lot. Again, if you have any questions, chat them in. We'll get them to you offline. Here is how you can get in touch with everyone on the call today. And then lastly, for everyone who's listening, Finale just wanted to throw out an offer that for new users, please join us, add your team. You'll get those users free for 3 months. That is a value of $180 per user that you'll get for free for the first 3 months. We are all here as a team to help and support your business grow. Again, thank you for having us. Please reach out to us. It has been a pleasure. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Todd, Lewis, Chris, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.